I'd started to develop this absolute terror of auditions, which I'm sure a lot of actors have.
Some actors choose to stay within their comfort zone, but Robert Pattinson doesn't. His comfort zone is almost always shifting, never static or predictable. He not only chooses unusual roles, but also plunges into extreme emotional states. Sometimes he's a melancholic vampire, other times a lonely figure consumed by inner turmoil, or a cold yet chaotic character. What sets Pattinson apart is his rare courage. He lets the camera capture his instability, lets his voice tremble when it should be steady, and lets the silences speak louder than the dialogue. Even in Twilight, his breakthrough role as Edward Cullen could have been a simple romantic vampire. But Pattinson chose a different approach. He transformed Edward into a tense, introspective character, sometimes even unsettling to the audience. Director Catherine Hardwicke wanted Edward to have a non-human feel, both unique and cold and mysterious. Pattinson went far in that direction, even being asked to smile more. But he refused, believing it would break the character's essence. The result was a quiet, emotionally repressed Edward, always torn between love and instinct. It was this almost monk-like seriousness that helped Twilight achieve the tragic love story the film aimed for. In The Batman, Robert Pattinson faced a challenge completely opposite to his previous roles. He had to create a sense of majesty and powerful presence while maintaining a discreet and emotionally rich inner self. He threw himself into the role of Bruce Wayne/Batman with seriousness, including the heavy costume and thick makeup. Pattinson once admitted that the first time he wore the mask, he felt a clear sense of threat from the character. "I would be scared if I saw this person walking down a dark alley." But at the same time, he realized the suit created countless new limitations, forcing him to constantly adjust his performance, primarily expressing emotions through his body rather than facial expressions. His co-star, Zoe Kravitz, later shared that her companionship helped Pattinson relieve pressure during filming, especially since he was still under the influence of his previous fame. In the film, Bruce Wayne is portrayed as a haunted and deeply wounded individual, almost childlike in his guilt. Batman, on the other hand, is cold, disciplined, and taciturn. Pattinson didn't choose one side, but explored both. A Batman sharp in action, but simultaneously a lonely, vulnerable man behind the mask. He was particularly interested in portraying Batman as a detective, rather than just a fighter, with many dialogue and investigative scenes tinged with emotion. It was this balance between cold intelligence and moments of vulnerability that created a Batman who is both terrifying and very human. In Good Time, Robert Pattinson continued to show a completely different side of his acting as Connie Nikas, a small but desperate criminal whose recklessness and vulnerability dragged him into a series of tragedies. To fully embody the character, Pattinson lost nearly 20 kilograms, living on oatmeal and tuna, to create the thin, tense physique that perfectly matched the character. He even maintained the character's demeanor off-set, wandering through New York's nightlife to truly experience the street life. Connie is both alluring and unsettling. A born liar, always manipulating and bending the truth as if it were a reflex. Pattinson exploited this subtly. At times, Connie is confident and quick-witted in the bars, but then immediately falls into panic and loses control when all his plans fall apart. He doesn't make Connie an exaggerated character, but keeps him real. A man trapped between ambition, fear, and a distorted affection for his younger brother. Then, in Tenet, Pattinson shifts to a completely different extreme with the role of Neil, elegant, gentle, and almost never losing his composure. In a world chaotic with time, Neil is the balancing point, intelligent, funny, and somewhat mysterious. Unlike many of Christopher Nolan's serious characters, Pattinson's Neil possesses a rare ease. He knows how to joke, had a laugh, yet always hides something profound in his eyes. It is this combination of gentleness and mystery that makes the character so captivating, both relatable and elusive. From Good Time to Tenet, Pattinson continues to prove that he is not confined to any particular archetype. Each role is a complete transformation of his on-screen persona. In The Rover, Robert Pattinson further demonstrates his versatility as Ray, a weak, shy young man with almost no self-confidence in a bleak, post-apocalyptic Australia. Unlike Neil in Tenet, Ray carries an energy of fear and dependence. He is deeply wounded by his bullying past, to the point of not recognizing his own vulnerability. When Ray encounters Eric, Guy Pearce, a violent and cold man, he almost follows him like a shadow, as if he's the only one who gives him a sense of being noticed. Pattinson portrays Ray as small in frame, with averted gaze and a stuttering voice. He doesn't try to make the character strong, but rather emphasizes Ray's fragility and dependence. Occasionally, just a gentle word from Eric is enough to spark a glimmer of hope or fragile confidence in Ray. It is this restraint that makes Ray so authentic. When the character finally resists or expresses strong emotions, the audience feels the weight of an entire journey compressed within. Then, in Cosmopolis, Pattinson moves into a completely different world, abstract, philosophical, and almost confined within a limousine. He plays Eric Packer, a young billionaire trapped in his own wealth and power. This is a role heavily focused on dialogue and thought, where Pattinson must convey emotion primarily through his voice and eyes. Eric is someone who controls everything but simultaneously loses control of his own life. Cold, distant, yet filled with inner turmoil. Pattinson portrays the character as someone who speaks softly, outwardly calm, but inwardly chaotic and empty. This contrast helps to clearly illustrate the film's theme of alienation and isolation in the modern world. From The Rover to Cosmopolis, he continues to demonstrate his ability to deeply embody characters who are wounded, lonely, and constantly on the brink of control and collapse. In High Life, Robert Pattinson further delves into dark and challenging acting territory as Monty, a solitary prisoner on a spaceship, while also caring for a child in the cold and desperate confines of space. Under the direction of Claire Denis, the film has a minimalist, slow-paced, yet haunting style. Pattinson completely immersed himself in that world, where emotions were repressed and only occasionally erupted violently. Monty is the kind of character who appears almost empty on the outside, but is tormented inside by desire, guilt, and despair. He once shared that Monty is like someone who wants to erase all remaining emotions within himself, a form of emotional self-destruction. On screen, this is shown through prolonged silences, vacant stares, and rare but powerful outbursts. The striking contrast is striking. On one side, numbness. On the other, uncontrollable emotional outbursts. Pattinson keeps the character in a constant state of tension, making every small action carry significant psychological weight. Especially in scenes interacting with the child, Monty reveals a fragile humanity, showing that beneath the veneer of despair, there is still a glimmer of tenderness. Along with High Life, Pattinson also appeared in The King, in a small but prominent role, the French Prince. Here, he completely changed his style, shifting to humor that was exaggerated and somewhat ridiculous. His character was distinctly satirical, an arrogant, ostentatious man with an overly exaggerated French accent and a self-satisfied air. Pattinson clearly enjoyed the role, turning it into a humorous highlight amidst the heavy historical drama. From High Life to The King, he showed incredible versatility. He could be immersed in desperate silence, but also burst out with exaggerated and entertaining humor. And then, in Remember Me, Pattinson continued with another color, a lighter, more sentimental story, marking another step in his ever-evolving journey. Looking back at Remember Me, Robert Pattinson played Tyler Hawkins, a college student deeply wounded by a family tragedy. Although the film was somewhat overshadowed by Twilight's popularity at the time, many critics acknowledged that Pattinson authentically portrayed Tyler's pain and inner turmoil. His character constantly fluctuated between various emotional states: anger, protectiveness, sadness, then tenderness and romance. At times, Tyler exploded in arguments with his father. At other times, he broke down in grief. And there were also moments of intense emotion alongside Emily DeRavin's character. This emotional shift made him the central figure of the entire story. Despite these being early roles, Pattinson showed he wasn't afraid to delve into heavy psychological material. He could handle major emotional climaxes while simultaneously creating a natural connection with his co-stars. In summary, Robert Pattinson's acting journey is a constant transformation. From melancholic lover and self-destructive character to comedic, villainous, and action icon, he never takes the safe route. Whatever the role, he seeks to touch upon the truest or most unsettling aspects of the character: fear, shame, arrogance, or naivety, and is willing to push it to the extreme. It is this constant rebirth that makes Pattinson an enigmatic actor, capable of dominating action blockbusters, yet also possessing immense depth in minimalist independent films. And looking back at all 11 of these films, one thing becomes clear. Robert Pattinson is not lacking in versatility. In fact, he has an overwhelming range.